Hello, my name is John Keegan and I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober and clean for some time now, and it's all thanks to the knowledge I gained from people in detox, ex-patients, and eventually in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I went in detox, I knew all about drinking, and I knew quite a lot about drugs. I knew about the mixtures and the concoctions, the liveners and the cures, and all the deviousness that goes with it. But I didn't know anything at all about sobriety. And I certainly didn't know anything about serenity. I didn't believe that one. I thought that was a myth. But it's not a myth. I've got a bit of both today. I met some very nice doctors through the years, also some very good nurses. And with the best will in the world, they did all they could for me. But they hadn't been there, and that's the difference. I got great treatment, but you can't learn from books about DTs. Unfortunately, you've got to live them. And I think if you try to imagine DTs, you'd probably have to multiply it by several thousand to get anywhere near the reality. You know what I'm talking about. I'm living proof that the people who put so much effort into me, it worked. I'm here today because of them. Unfortunately, some of them are not here. They're not with us anymore, they've passed on. And I think it's a crying shame that all that goodness and knowledge is gone forever. And it prompted me to do a series of DVDs that would helpfully immortalize some of the good people we've still got with us. And I think it's only fitting I would start with a man you'd have to call the governor, Mr. Dick Fitzgerald. Now there's a man who's been through the mill, a real rough life. But he's come out the other end. Not all bitter and twisted as you might expect, but calm and serene, very peaceful man, full of gratitude. It's impossible to calculate how many people he's helped through the years, or how many people he's possibly saved. You won't hear any of that from him because he's far too modest. But I've got no problem pointing it out. The priceless good he's done. And I'm sure he will continue to do so because that's the nature of the man. Now, as a result of this DVD, he can do it forever. We've got him. We've got him immortalized. He's precious. He says in his talk, take big spoonfuls. My advice would be to take big dollops of it and digest it, because this is good stuff. It's probably the best you'll ever hear. And I promise you, if you watch this DVD and your listening ear is there, you'll pick up tricks of the trade, shortcuts, little gems that will get you sober, and more importantly, keep you sober. The very worst thing this DVD will do is help you. And when you've got to the end of this, you'll know why I've called him the governor. It's very straightforward, because he is the governor. And without further ado, I'll hand you over to a real gentleman. It's a privilege and a pleasure to know him. And I'm really pleased with this DVD. I think it's absolute magic. Thank you very much.
My name is Dick, I'm an alcoholic, but by the grace of God and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't have a drink today. That's the most important thing I can ever say in my life, you know, and forgetting about everything else, is not taking a drink today. And I've been saying that now for quite a few days, you know, and I hope I keep on saying it, you know. I'm always a bit nervous, whether I'm sharing at the top of the table or from the floor, you know, and that's part of my illness, you know. I was always a nervous person, always a kind of a frightened person, you know, and never knew what I was going to say next, and kind of a lot of fear. I didn't actually hear the word fear until I came into AA, you know, and for many years I wasn't in any mental state to know what was going on, you know, because that is the nature of the illness I suffer from, you know. I'll give you a small bit of background, like, of what it was like, and what happened, and what it's like now, you know. And as you guessed by now, I was born in Rhode Island nearly 70 years ago, you know, and the first thing I encountered was fear. I was born in a mud cabin, the 8th youngest of 10 children, and 8 of us survived, you know, and I never thought I never knew like that I might make it myself when I was told what happened to me, that I had double pneumonia when I was 3 weeks old, you know, and I thought, well, that had been a great time to cross the River Jordan. Why did they keep me alive from this hell I've been brought into, you know, because I was introduced to alcohol at a very early age, and after the first drink, like, I was nailed to the counter, because every time I took a drink, the drink took me. And to me, it's been the lonely disease. It's been a very lonely place for me all my life, you know, the isolation and the alienation and humiliation and confrontation, you know, and I was drinking heavily before I left Ireland at the age of 17, you know, and lucky enough I got away to Birmingham. I thought the best place to hide a tree was in the forest. So I grew up in the slums in Birmingham, you know, and I hated the digs. I hated being in a foreign country. I hated looking for digs and looking for rooms. I hated looking for jobs. I hated being in the sardine tin and the digs and the rooms at the time that we were all packed in there, you know. And there wouldn't be any central heating or any cooking facilities or anything, so the only way we could go was the pub, you know. And then when I got in the building sites, the only way I could dry my clothes in the evening was in the pub, you know. So everything started in the pub, and to finish up, I wanted a job, I went to the pub, you know, and when it rained, I went to the pub. When I wanted a sack, I went to the pub as well. I didn't go in looking for it, but it usually happened as well, you know. So my whole life revolved around the pub, you know. There wasn't any telephones at the time. If you were to meet any contractor for a job or anything, be down in the pub, you know. That's where it all started, and that's where it all ended, you know. But to me, like, I was I was beyond the pale at a very young age because I couldn't function, you know. It wasn't long, like, until that chilling vapour, which is loneliness, settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker, you know. And I was faced with the hideous 4 horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration and despair, you know. And I didn't know of any jumping off place, you know. And that's how it went on. It was an existence without life. And I used to think if I'd been born 100 years earlier, it might have been better. I could have gone away out to the Yukon or out to the Gold Rush, and I might have fitted in with the man that don't fit in, you know. All my life I've been at that drinking period. I was always quoting Robert Service, you know, that there's a race of men who don't fit in, a race that can't stay still. So they break the hearts of kith and kin and roam the world at will. They range the fields and rove the floods and climb the mountain crest. Theirs is the curse to the gypsy blood, for they don't know how to rest, always irritable, restless and discontented, and that each new move was a fresh mistake. It was just a walk on disaster area, you know. And I finished up, I ran out of space, I'd nowhere to go. So my geographicals became from one park bench to another, you know. I became a a street drinker at a very younger age. I also became the youngest tramp in Britain, you know, and I could no longer afford accommodation or able to keep a job, you know, down to this disease, as I call it today, you know. And we used to have to give ourselves up to the workhouses that were known as spikes then, you see, and to be stripped, scrubbed and fumigated. And how the coined the name spike was, you see, for the workhouse. The spike was a steel wedge, and one inmate held it in the tongs and the other fellow was given a sledgehammer, and they had to break a big rock into tiny particles and it had to be sieved down through a tiny hole before you got your bowl of Canadian pig meal qualified, you know. So that's why a spike was called a spike, you know. I was wondering, why was it called a spike, you see, because the lights was on but there was nobody at home, you know. I was wondering why was a spike called a spike, but I was never wondering about why was I in the spike, you know. Whatever got me from A to B, you know. And where do I start from? How am I going to end off? Where's no starting point? There's no finishing line. So I'm just kind of acting and reacting and trying to shape and mould everybody to my own specifications, you know. And I was never diagnosed as an alcoholic. I was diagnosed as a dosser and a tramp and a vagrant and a parasite and all these things, you know. And I used to look at medical reports, social reports and probation reports. She used to say, all his adult life, Mr. Fitzgerald has been mentally challenged, chemically controlled and hygienically disadvantaged, you know. And I was no better off or wiser where I was, you know. There was nobody could do nothing. Even if they could listen to us, they wouldn't have known what we were talking about, because I couldn't explain myself to a non-alcoholic, you see. And there's only till two alcoholics made up together, like in America, that they were able to identify the nature of their illness, you see. Because up to then, like, it was a madhouse. People like me was diagnosed as we were demonized, shunned and vilified, and to be locked away from society, you know. And alcoholics were down as notorious drunkards, and single mothers that were diagnosed as fallen women. So we were all kind of ostracized in that line. We all deserved a pauper's death, you know. And all my soulmates, my soul brothers and sisters, all died from this disease, you know. They were all buried at 3 o'clock, and that's when they buried the paupers, 12 at a time, 4 wide and 3 deep. And that's the only day they became anonymous, you know. So I always thank God, like, for the courtesy, for not allowing me to die in ignorance from this disease, you know. Because I was introduced to this fellowship in 1966, and that was 900 years after the Battle of Hastings. That's the only way I could have remembered it, you know. So I was told to keep it simple, and they made it 300 after the Great Fire of London, you know. So they keep it. But that's okay today, like, because it's only for today and trying to stay sober within the day. It's not how long I'm sober, like, you know, because no matter how long I'm sober, I'm still only one drink away from the worst day of my life, you know, because the sniper is still on the roof. He's still sworn to get me, you know. He's got everybody else. He doesn't take days off. He doesn't go on holidays, you know. And his favourite song is like, every move you make and every breath you take, I'll be watching you. But he hasn't got me yet, because I'm keeping very close to these rooms, you know. And and that's how it is. But I haven't any regrets today about any of it, you know. Knowing the true nature of the illness that I suffer from. It doesn't matter to me where it took me or what it didn't take me to, because knowing that the true nature of this illness is that my rightful place is the gutter, and I'm not there today, and I haven't been there for many years, you know. But I still got to keep up front, you know, keep going forward, you know, and keep climbing. I don't want to get to the summit. I don't want to crack it. I don't want to say I'm cured, you know. As long as I can just keep climbing, I don't want to reach the summit, you know. Because I wouldn't like if I'd known everything, you know. There would be nothing much left to strive for after that. But getting back to basics, like the first meeting I was at, and it was Travis from Bristol, and he says, Dick, He says you might be a hard man to live in the gutter, but it'll take a harder man to get out of it. Because in truth, we're all more than 50% of what we are by imitation. And I feel I have to imitate other people to my own detriment, you know, to fit in. People like me with low self-esteem and looking for approval, saying yes to things when I really mean no, to my own detriment, you know. And that has been a terrible stumbling block over so many years as well, you know. And the day came I couldn't live with it and I couldn't live without it, you know. When I wasn't running from the drunks, next thing, well, if they weren't looking for me, I wasn't looking for them, because I still found security in the familiar, you know. I couldn't drink with normal people because the conversation wouldn't be right, you know. And and nobody would have tolerated our behaviour the way we drank from early morning till late at night, you know. People wouldn't be tolerated anywhere else. So we were a society unto ourselves, you know. There was us and there was them, you know. And I loved the conviviality we had for each other, you know, because we were all stigmatised and all kind of stonewalled and vilified. So at least we had a common denominator. We were the outcasts of society, you know. And they said there's the love of a son for his mother, and there's the love of a brother for his brother. But there's no greater love in this whole wide world than for one drunken bum for another, you know. The same morning grief, the same pain, the same isolation, you know. And at least we had that common denominator where there was safety in numbers. I couldn't be on my own. Where we lived in collective schizophrenia, you know, that safety net was there. But they all died along the way, so I was left on my own and I had to climb back to AA. I didn't get the program right away. I got into halfway houses, into detox centres, into rehabs where I was able to go to work from there, but I still wouldn't be allowed a key of my own. I still wouldn't be capable of stopping somebody coming back to the house I didn't want unless there was security there, you know. And that's how it's been for me, you know. I couldn't afford to make any enemies because I needed everybody to stay alive, you know. And I was in one detox centre 3 times, and the last time I went back there, since I had my last drink, was about 22 years ago, you know. And I said, well, there's nothing we can tell you this time. About time you start taking the actions. I hadn't ever heard of step meetings up to date. I might have heard them, but I was never introduced to them, you know. I never heard of step 1, like that I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life is unmanageable. And 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And 3, about turning my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him, you know. So I had to take the first 3 steps, like, and put my life under new management and being delivered from the bondage of self. I remember at that detox centre, that rehab, you know, they said, there's nothing more we can tell you. You should be giving us help now instead of that, like that. You've learned it all, but you haven't taken the actions yet. And it's a program of action. You'll have to do something, you know. It doesn't matter what you do something, you know. And it says, put it this way, like if the house goes on fire, you'll have to call the fire brigade. That you don't go down on your knees and start praying for rain. You have to start taking the action, you know. And it was also taught me like to help an old dear across the street. It doesn't matter whether she wants to cross over or not, like at least you're doing something anyway, you know. And I had a few strange experiences in that direction, you know. And that's how it's been. And I started to get involved in AA. I started making the tea up in Kilburn for a year. I got down to Fulham every week for special biscuits for them, and it was nice having that commitment, you know, having some little commitment where I belong somewhere, you know, and getting to know people and shaking hands with people and meeting people coming in the door for the first time who were in the same boat as myself, you know. I didn't come into these rooms like very, 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 very kind of bright myself, you know. I came in when I had nowhere else left to go. I was at the end of my tether and I'd taken it right to the wire the last time, you know. I crawled out of a graveyard one night in Hammersmith about 20 odd years ago, you know, I forget when it was, you know, and at that point in time I didn't want to live like this. I didn't want to die like this, going slowly insane and being taunted by death, you know. I thought, my God, you know, this is terrible, you know. And I could no longer go on living in the company of a memory that served no purpose, hostile to the past, impatient in the present, and cheated of the future. Just nobody nowhere, nothing worked. Booze didn't work, nothing worked. All I was getting was flashbacks and panic attacks, you know. Thought, my God, if I'll ever get out of it this time, if I get to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous this time, I'll do anything that is suggested, you know. Even if I got to walk 10 miles backwards through the African jungle to qualify to get in them doors, I'll do it, you know. Because I was terrified out of my skin, you know. And of course the great thing being at the bottom of the ladder was I couldn't fall off it, you know. I could only start coming up. And I got into the rooms that taught me that I wasn't a bad person trying to get good, but a sick person trying to get better, trying to get well, you know. And that took a lot of poison out of it. They also told me alcoholism was a disease and not a disgrace. And sometimes we have relapses along the way. I don't call them as slips myself. We have relapses like any other sickness. And I have to deal it in that context, you know, that I suffer from a threefold illness: mental, physical and spiritual. And just stop and drink was no good, you know. Today I refer to it as the three-headed dragon, you know. And chopping off one head is not much use, because stop and drink is not much use, because he's still got 2/3 of his strength left. I've got to chop both the three heads off at the same time and keep them pared down in a daily basis: mental, physical and spiritual. I like the slogans in here as well. Keep it simple, you know. Keep it simple. And first things first, and easy does it. And don't get hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you know, to try and not take too much on, not to try to buy too much off, you know. Keep it in that context. And it doesn't matter what happens in the day, that if I get to bed tonight without taking that first drink, I'll be a success, you know. And I've got to put my sobriety before everything else, because that's all I've got. I haven't anything else, you know. I'm not great at giving people advice or sorting people out, because I'm the patient, I'm not the psychiatrist. I'm the one with the grave emotional and mental disorders. I tried to save all my soulmates over the years, you know, broke into squats and told them if they didn't take the first drink, they couldn't get drunk, and they just didn't know what I was talking about, you know. But I can understand all that, the total nature of the illness itself. See, for many, many years, I knew the physical aspects of what alcohol done to me, you know. The craving, the dehydration, the horrors, the DTs, the lot like. But I couldn't get the mental side. Why would I ever want to do it again, you know? That I haven't learned anything by my mistakes. They used to say a wise man learns by other people's mistakes and a fool by his own. And I couldn't learn by my own. So I believe for many years I had been mentally handicapped, you know. Because what booze done to me, it short-circuited the logic of thinking. My whole thinking was gone up the creek, you know. And I could identify with two drunks one night over in Westbourne Park. They missed the last bus home, you know, and they went into the bus garage across the way to nick one. And I spent an hour around the garage looking for a number 28 bus to no avail, you know. So I finally decided I'd nick a 36 and drive it to the terminus in Queen's Park and walk the other 2 miles, you know. And that's the story of my life, you know. We short-circuit the logic of thinking, because I lived in a false psychology, something I could understand. The real world was too cruel, the real world was too tough. I couldn't live in the real world. We were sensitive people. I couldn't sack men at work who were married men or anything like that, you know. So we're basically very sensitive people, you know, and thank God it's been like that to me. And my own definition for myself, and my own definition of an alcoholic for me is a poor drunk with a conscience, you know. And And I'll drink on that if I don't walk the line. Johnny Cash says, I've got to walk that line, otherwise I'll drink, you know. I can't get away with nothing, you know. And thank God I can't, you see, because I was brought up with a good set of values. Having mentioned earlier on, I had pneumonia when I was a couple of weeks old, you see. I didn't have much trouble with a higher power, because my parents could have done nothing more for me, so they took me up to the church and had me immersed in a bowl of water, you know, and had me marked for ownership to a power greater themselves into the Christian faith. And that has never been a problem with me, you know. I believe like that God left me down for a lot of years, but today I don't. That was my education, that was my university of life out there, you know. And I learned an awful lot out there, thank God, you know. And thank God nobody made it easy for me. Nobody deprived me of my rock bottom. And I was told that when I came into the room myself. Don't deprive the alcoholic of his rock bottom, you know. It's only through pain that we'll do something, you see, when the chemical gets too tough, you know. But I mentioned there about the physical aspects of it, the dehydration and the craving of one drink craves another one. I knew all this, you see, that was all right because I experienced that. But the invisible aspect of it, like, why would I want to do it again? Until I learned it in these rooms that I was somebody who was born with an irresistible tendency towards fermented beverages. That booze done something for me it didn't do for other people. And I could use it as a negative reinforcement to help me to cope with unpleasant mental and physical states. So booze was my answer. Booze was the answer. But when the chemical got too tough, I couldn't stop, because this was coupled with an obsessional compulsive neurosis that I had no mental defense against the first drink. And nothing in the world was going to save me, you know, until I take the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous to admit that I was powerless over alcohol and my life was unmanageable, you know. And also in step 3, put my life under new management, under the care of God. I understood him, you know, and getting out the driving seat, you know. I've also mentioned the room sometimes, like the word humility helped me a lot, you know. It's not thinking less of myself, but thinking of myself less, you know. Not to gloat about praise in one hand or be discouraged about criticism on the other. So thank God I get a bit of criticism today, which means that I must be doing something. But I'm man enough to take it today, you know, because this is about growing up emotionally. We were emotional cripples. And I used to love that phrase when I came into the room some years ago, like we were children trapped in adults' bodies, you know, premature adults. That never developed mentally, you know. It's about trying to grow up mentally today, you know, because a lot of my life has been a blackout, and I've been mentally stunted for many, many years, you know. I haven't done the normal things other people done. All I have been doing is trying to survive, you know. I just lived to survive, and there was no victory in survival. And after being incarcerated on and on over the years for 20 years as a dirty drunk, you know, because when I finally crawled out of my number tomb, there wasn't any victory. There wasn't any yellow ribbons round the old oak tree, or there wasn't any green grass of home. I crawled out mutilated, whimpering and terribly alone. I'd lost all faith in God and man, you know. Back out to the crying wind and the lonesome hush. I used to think an idle the old woman of the road, you know. I'm weary of mist and dark and roads where there's never a house or bush, and tired I am of bog and road, of the crying wind and the lonesome hush. 'Twas always very lonely, you know. Back out with the limping wounded, back along the yellow brick road, back along the trail of tears to the bomb site, you know. Back into an open crematorium where it'll be burned and roasted alive with every kind of spirit you can put in your hand. Surgical spirits, methylated spirits, didn't matter what it was, you know. Anything to slow the tape down in the head, you know. And thank God today I've been saved from all that. Up to today I've been saved from that, you know, and I'll never be grateful enough. It doesn't matter how much I put into over the years, it'll be only a fraction like of what I've taken out, you know. To be given this this breathing space of finding out who I am, finding out that I'm an okay person, you know, that I'm an okay person today. And I was given a good set of values, and today I'm getting them all back again, because booze removed them all, you see. We're up in a good tradition, you know. And I came from an non-alcoholic home. My father detested drink. He just despised it. He didn't call it booze, he called it liquor, you know. And he used to say liquor wrecked more homes than the gone man ever done with the crowbar, you know. And there was a lot of truth in that. I see the way it destroyed other people as well, you know. And recognising that I was powerless over it, nothing I could do with it. Because it's used in all occasions. Births, christenings, marriages, deaths, booze, booze, booze. And even there a couple of years ago in Tehran, like when I out in Iran, when Ireland qualified for the World Cup, and the British commentator there felt very sorry for the Irish fraternity and the players. He said, what a barren country to find yourselves in, you know. That the Irish can't celebrate until they get on the plane, until they get drink. How could you celebrate without Guinness, you know? And this is how it was portrayed, you see. And I looked at all these heroes over the years, you know, Brendan Behan and all, you know, the hard drinking and the tough guy, you know, Richard Harris, etc., you know. And today I just realised they were poor alcoholics, you know, they were sick people. They weren't funny people, they were sick people. Brendan died at 41 years of age from this disease, you know, people I looked up at, you know. And all happened to an awful lot of good people, a lot of fine people, you know. Why is it like this, you know? But today, like, I really come to terms with the disease itself, you see, the nature of the illness, you know. But the marvellous thing is there's so much help available today. But an awful lot of people need it, but they don't want it, you know, for some unknown reason, you know. I can never tell you why that is. All I know is my own story. I know for many years I hated anything about change. You know, change or die, just to come up with that slogan in here, you know. And making this 180 degrees turn. But I think what brought it about was pain and some form of divine intervention. That I had no choice in the matter, you know. Just making that 180 degrees turn. I start walking in the complete opposite direction I've been walking in my life, you know. And over the years now, booze has nothing in my life anymore. It doesn't mean nothing. I don't have to go to pubs to please people. There was nothing there for me in the first place, you know. I don't have to try and fit in anymore. I'm okay as I am, you know. And today it's about carrying the message to the still suffering alcoholic. It's nice to be out here kneeling this evening, you know. I was here 20 odd years ago, maybe 25 years ago, on a heart machine after taking an overdose after drink, you know. And I can walk in here today feeling safe, sane and sober without being escorted from A to B. Everybody above me is locked up in locked wards here, you know. And that's life in life's terms, but at least there's hope. And that's the message I was given to when I came into the room. I was given a message of hope. And I was told to take big spoonfuls of it. I was told I could overdose on it and it wouldn't kill me, you know. And if I went to meetings on a regular basis, it would help me to keep hope alive, you know. And I also think like of the old Irish proverb that says like, hope is something we are left with in a bad time, you know. Just that bit of life, bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I also think like, you know, that after being introduced to this program, I could never get away from it again. I know that someday, somewhere, maybe the miracle will happen, you know. Because after being introduced to it, I could never get away, no matter how much I tried to fake it or anything, you know. Because all the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of one solitary candle. And I can no longer curse the dark, and for that I'll always be grateful. But I could never tell you the other side of the story too much, because I wouldn't be too acquainted with myself. But I used to often think of the Ballad of Reading Jane with Oscar Wilde and all them, you know, because we were in the melting pot in D-Wing in Pentonville over the years. The drunks wing, we were bounded in there, you know. All the derelicts of society, all the misfits, all the no-hopers, you know. And nothing had changed over the years. And I used to be quoting him sometimes, you know, that each narrow cell that we dwell is a foul and dark latrine, and the fetid breath of living death chokes up its grated screen, and all but lust is turned to dust in humanity's machine. Dear Christ, these very prison walls suddenly did reel, and the sky above my head became a arc of scorching steel, and though I was a soul in pain, my pain I could not feel. I couldn't feel anything, it was numb and dumb, you know. And when I came into these rooms, I was defrosted, you know. I was able to talk a bit, because I found love in these rooms, you know. I found people who cared about me again, you know. People who really believed in me, you know. Told me I wasn't a bad case, but I was a sad one, you know. And that things would get better. All I'll have to do is, don't take the first drink, get to a meeting. Don't take the first drink, get to a meeting. Forget about everything else. Get to bed tonight without the first drink. And that's how it's been like, you know. And sometimes that has been actually hard enough, you know. Trying to keep away from one off-lighters at the time and one pub at the time, you know. But thank God today, like, I just kept going in the right direction. Keep walking in the right direction. I haven't been to any bad meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous because I've been walking in the right direction. I passed off license, I passed pubs, and I passed drinking acquaintances. So I must be walking in the right direction, and that's all that matters. It's not about all verbal chess or verbal gymnastics or all this analysis, paralysis, etc., you know. I was told to keep it simple in here, you know, and to do what was suggested. And to walk the walk, not talk the talk, but to walk the walk, you know, taking the action. And today, like, I visit all the other areas, like in the halfway houses, etc., where there's recovery, you know, Kilburn night shelters, Carriers in South London, and all these areas, and East London, you know, where there's early recovery, you know. It's been there for the newcomer because there was somebody there for me, you know, and I still remember these people. Even the co-founders of this fellowship, Bill W. and Dr. Bob, you know, sometimes I had to set out the day before to get to a meeting, you know. It took them 2 days to get to a meeting. So it's not very difficult for me to get from Hammersmith to Ealing, you know. Although it's a little bit busy today, seeing the carnival is on. Thank God I'm away from that too. I couldn't be kind of packed into crowds, but that's okay. Everybody to their own enjoyment, you know. And nothing bad has happened to me since I've come into AA. An awful lot of good things. I've never been homeless, I've never been anything. I've had other operations, other illnesses, but nothing is as bad as the scourge of a practicing alcoholic, you know. It's definitely a very, very lonely place to be, you know. And I used to think of people like, who should I say, each and every one of them, like, you know, that they used to make up little poems about it, you know. About the long day's journey into night, you know, by Eugene O'Neill, and the dark nights of the soul when it was always 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, waiting for morning. And I used to think of that. I used to also think of Angela Dickinson's little poem, you know, will there really be a morning? Is there such a thing called day? Could I see it from the mountains if I was as tall as they? Has it feet like water lilies? Has it feathers like a bird? Does it come from strange places in which I've never heard? O come scholar, O come sailor, O come wise man from the skies, please to tell this little pilgrim where that place called morning lies, you know. And when dawn broke and the night rolled back, the sun came up and mocked me. I used to curse my shadow like my vision in the shop window, you know. And how am I going to make myself invisible today? And So we seek it out again, more of the same, you know. But thank God there's great knowledge available today. Thank God like I'm living a good time. There's help in every corner today. It's just grasping out for it, you know. Just reaching out. All you got to do is say, help. I'm in trouble, you know. And then it's okay. I don't stay in the negative side of things, you know. I don't think, because I don't know why some people can't get it. It's not for me to say, you see. All I know is like that I'm the only person left out of a whole lost generation, you know, and that I'll have to be shortlisted. I'd have to be shortlisted, you know. Not alone to recognise I was an alcoholic, but that one day I might be able to accept it. And that if I could accept it, one day I might be able to do something about it. And today, like, that is the miracle for me, you know. Because I love the promises in this fellowship. Which goes on to describe, like, it doesn't matter how far down the scale we've gone, our experience can benefit others, you know. So that's good for me to know that I can actually turn this around on its head. That I can actually tell people today, you don't have to go to the end of the line. You don't have to go into the basement. You can get offered any stop you want and get on any floor you want, you know. You don't have to be a last gasper like I was, you know. Because all I know is, like, the farther down you go, the harder it is to get back, you know. And that some people will never make it, you know. I was thinking about it, the disease of denial there, you know. It reminded me of an old boy over in Camden Town there last January in the bad weather, you know. He crawled up to the doctor's one morning unshaven and dishevelled, you know, and shaking like a jelly between two crutches. The doctor put him up on the couch and examined him. Well, he says, your heart is all right, your lungs are all right, your kidneys are all right, your liver is all right. He says, I can't make a diagnosis. He says, I'm afraid, he says, it must be the booze. So your man says, well, I'm sorry about that, doctor. He says, I'll call back when you're sober, you know. And I could identify with all that, the total denial. It's not me that's in denial, it's the illness itself that's in denial. It's the only disease there is that tells you haven't got it. That it's people, places and things that's making you like this, you know. And since I've been in recovery, I've had a great relationship with people, you know, and I've been to a lot of nice places, and I've done a lot of nice things, you know. I live today in a very, very, very friendly environment. I no longer live in a hostile world, you know. And this is the miracles of AA. I also believe that there's no hopeless cases come through these rooms, you know. Because I believe as human beings, we're all of eternal value. We're all valuable, we're all worthy, and we're all precious. And we can all grow in wholeness in human and spiritual terms. There's no hopeless case, you know. Because if this program will work for me, it will work for anybody, you know. Because some men see things as they are and say, why? Today I dream things that never were and say, why not? Because we're still in the age of miracles, you know, and it's lovely to know this, you know. And life is good, life is great. I never believed like I'd lived to nearly 70 years of age. My life was over by the time I was 20, you know. And that I could walk into a meeting 50 years later, where I'm coming from, feeling sane, safe and sober. And that says it for itself, you know. That says it for itself, you know. I don't have to say anything. It's living testimony, you know. It's living testimony to me, everybody I meet in this room, that this program works, you know. It doesn't matter always to know where. I know where they're coming from. But I know they're in the right place. I know there's help available. I know they're in the right direction, you know. And it's God-given. It has to be God-given for people like me, you know, knowing the true nature of illness. Knowing like that there's no help outside of here, there's nothing whatsoever until we take that first step, admitting that we're powerless over alcohol. Because I've been on the front line for the last 40 years. I tried to save all my soulmates, my soul brothers and sisters. Got myself evicted out of homes and things, and I'm putting up with them and running for them to courts, hospitals. Everywhere, bail hostels, etc. And I didn't save any of them, you know. I haven't saved any of them. Because outside the rooms, there is nothing there. There is nothing there whatsoever, you know, until we get on a program of recovery, you know. And I was told when I came in here that many meetings make it easy, few make it hard, and none make it impossible, you know. And when I stick close to the rooms, it's working among friends. I've got a wealth of friends today. When I was drinking, I didn't have a friend in the world. I was soulless. I was everything, you know, just nobody, nowhere, you know. And today that's completely changed. I don't like to dramatise something or anything like that, but all I know is like is to give it your best shot, give it a go, what have you got to lose, you know. I was back in Ireland there a couple of years ago, and they said like, they asked me what, I know I'm in AA back there, like around, come from the brewery side of it, you know, I go to brewery house there on a regular basis, Kilmore, you know, and they were saying, what's it like in AA? Well, I usually think of Groucho Marx when he was 70 years old. They asked him on his birthday, Groucho, what's it like being 70 years old? Well, he says it's not too bad when you consider the alternative, you know. So I could say the same thing about AA, like, you know, it's not too bad when you consider the alternative. I know what the alternative is for people like me, and it's a long, slow suicide, a long, painful death, you know. It's a long journey to self-murder, you know. That's all I can put it down as today, self-murder, you know. And thank God nobody made it easy. I met some wonderful people in here, in these rooms, that took me to their home, people that phoned me up early hours in the morning, checked up to see was I still alive, got me into detoxes, and most important, got me to a meeting. Told me to just hang in there for now, it doesn't matter what ending ends, just hang in, don't take the first drink, get to a meeting. Don't take the first drink, get to a meeting. Just as simple as that, you know. And today it's paid off, thank God. Today I'm reaping the rewards, you know. I hope to go back to Ireland very shortly because I'm involved with AA back there as well, you know. And it's been a great journey. Nothing outside of that like would have made any sense to me of any self-worth or anything else, you know. And I love being sober, it's great being sober. It's given me definitely a life beyond my wildest dreams, you know. And I usually think like of Dr. Bob and Bill Double when I come to the meeting, you know, because we usually finish off with the Serenity Prayer. And actually I believe the Serenity Prayer was found top of a coffin. It was a memorial card on top of a coffin in Chicago. And the words of it went like, and we still use it today, it's like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I leave it there, and thank you very much again. Thank you.